I do remember Tony and I having conversation very early on and going, no flashbacks to the past, no going back to the past. For many reasons. I think we felt that that would allow, I mean, it's like two different, so there's two books going on in the book. In some ways, we didn't want to make two films within the one film. And also it's always easy to kind of distance yourself, I think, slightly, and not be as involved in a character's journey when there's a flashback. It takes you out of that immediate kind of close moment-to-moment experience. So that was a very clear decision, and we never reneged on that. We never, ever had flashbacks. I'd say the decisions that we made that were crucial towards the end were taking the curse from the mother's side of the family and giving it to the father. And what that did was that focused in Isaac's dilemma in the one parent, because rather than it be the superstitious mother who carries the curse and, you know, the left-leaning communist father who's the rational side, in some ways it's a lot more confronting to see both those qualities in the one person and to learn something about that parent after they've gone, to kind of sense that you didn't really ever really know your father properly and that he might have been haunted by things you couldn't understand, that inside the rational is always the irrational, and to clearly focus that in one character as opposed to split it into two was a late decision and a really clear decision, because the moment we made it we all just went, that's it, that's perfect, that's right. I think the idea of turning the Sal character into his brother in Budapest came probably around midway through, as it became clearer that this was going to be a family story, and the best way to kind of keep pulling it into the family was to give it to the family as opposed to disperse it amongst boyfriends and friends, and it felt a lot stronger. I think the idea of the psychological thriller was probably one of the last elements to actually properly take place, in the sense that we understood our material and we understood our journeys and we understood the characters and the ambitions, but we were often in the process of development, struggling to find the right film form, the right storytelling form to use. And I do remember not quite towards the end of the drafting process, but maybe a year before we shot, we'd had discussed the need for it to play out psychologically so that you never really knew whether or not this stuff was really happening to him or whether or not it was his perspective. You were never allowed to sit too easily within it so that you could just judge him as a character. You had to go on that journey with him, and I think that's what psychological thrillers do. They kind of bring it very close. And so I do remember borrowing so many films and sitting down for days on end, watching psychological thriller and horror one after the other, and letting them just wash over me so I could just try and understand them just on a formal level, and then pick the bits that I was interested in, because it was always going to be in many ways a naturalistic film too, and a kind of a very hyper-realist film about contemporary Europe. So in some ways the real clarity about that form was something that we did agree on, but we almost went through a whole lot of other versions before we got there, actually. Form followed content, I would say. Yeah, even though I think the book has a great sense of psychological thriller about it too. But it's historical epic, and it's also a road movie too. It's a classical road movie.
What the fuck are you doing, Isaac?
Nothing. It's nothing.